Mana mgbe ụfọdụ agamnihu anyị na-eme ka anyị mụta nnukwu ihe site n'ihe mere n'ime ndụ anyị n'oge gara aga. Lee anya, ọtụtụ mgbe anyị na-ejigidesi ike ihe ndị mere anyị n'oge gara aga n'ihi na anyị nwere ihe mwute rie nne maka na ọ bụghị ndị anyị tụrụ anya ga-eme anyị ihe mere anyị taa. Ụfọdụ ndị anyị na-ele anya na ha ga-akwagide anyị n'ịga n'ihu anyị nwere ike ha ekwesịghị iso n'ime akụkọ ịga n'ihu anyị. Ka m gwa gị eziokwu, ịma ndị enyi maọbụ ndị agbata obi gị n'ike ịkwagide obi na agamnihu gị, maka na adịghị enye ụwa n'ike, ejighịkwa n'ike mbụ. Ụfọdụ ihe ndị mere anyị n'oge gara aga nke anyị na-ahụta ihe ọjọọ nwere ike bụ ihe ndị kwesịrị ka ha maa anyị ka akụkọ ịga n'ihu anyị a wee zuo.
Introspection can be hard at times, but that's the context of reflection. Because a mind cannot live without reflection. And no matter how nice it is for us to reflect and think back about all the good things that happen in our life, we can't accept the bad and the sadness, the tiny fragments of our past. So indulge your distractions and stick to life. Float away your mental fights and the train of voices. Reflections and progressions. Perspectives that often travel on the edge of the linear. On a sober reflection, take me back down to the vastness of place where it all began. Take a deep breath and eat your food. As you take a step back from the wine, need and you to look at the bigger picture and the picture and the ever business leading the secret to find out to all within us. Do not disguise your lies, nor smooth out the thinness of the sugar-coated descriptions of what is and what we know. Ejikwa n'ihe ụtọ n'ikwu okwu ka ime ihe gbabara agbaba ka ọ bụrụ ihe kwụ ọtọ, maka na ihe nzuzo nke obi mgbe ụfọdụ na-agbagwoju anyị anya, mana n'anya nke dị n'ihu ka a sị gị na nke dị n'ihu ka ma ọ bụrụ na anyị nwee nghọta dọrọ akụ na onye nwere ndụ na ndụ
onye nwere ndụ na-aga n'iru. Biko, let us give them a resounding round of applause, please. It was such a very powerful presentation. Thank you so much. And then while we're waiting for our speaker to come in, she's outside. She needs to have some interviews before she comes in. So, like we already know that beyond the conversation that we hold at Ńkàtá Ụ, Ńkàtá also provides, a mentorship ground, an opportunity to connect with people, network, build new relationships. So, please, when you come for Ńkàtá, don't just, come in, sit down, listen, and then you go. Please, at every Ńkàtá that you attend, make sure that you make a new friend, at least one person. Make sure you connect with at least one person. We never know where those connections will come in handy. All right, so we'll just give time for people to, connect, network, and then we'll have water behind there also if you are thirsty. And as soon as our speaker is done, as soon as she comes in, we'll kick off with the Ńkàtá proper. Thank you so much. I'm going to invite to the stage the Executive Director of the Center for Memories, Mr. Alaigbo. He's going to welcome us specially and then tell us a bit about the center and the work that we do, and then we'll kick off things from there. Thank you, Mr. Alaigbo.
Ndị Igbo mma mmanụ, ndị Igbo ekene m unu, ndị Igbo anọkwa na online. All right, n'atụfu ya oge ọbụla, eji m afa ndị board na ndị management of Center for Memories na-anabata mmadụ niile na Ńkàtá Ụmụ nke September 2022. So na Center for Memories ihe anyị na-arụ bụ ịhazi ihe gbasatara ndị Igbo ma ncheta anyị ma asụsụ anyị, ihe niile anyị na-eme iji kwalite asụsụ na omenala ndị Igbo. So anyị nwe ọtụtụ programs anyị na-eme dịka Ńkàtá Ụmụ nke anyị bịa maka ya. Anyị nwekwa the children's version of Ńkàtá Ụmụ nke a na-akpọ nzukọ ụmụaka ka anyị na-enwe every last Saturday of the month. Anyị nwekwa the adult and children's book club a na-eme, but one of the main things I name about the exhibitions. Currently, I'm with 2 exhibitions at the center. Ozemena exhibition. Kena akako basatara Nigeria Biafra War. I like an open up in the Afia TV, in the Enugu Sports Club, United Nigeria Airlines, na Penguins. Maka support one and you from the program I name in Aganero. And now you're going to go no till the end of the program. So.
So I'm going to tell us just a brief history of Ńkàtá Ụ and why we started this event. So Ńkàtá is an initiative of the Center for Memory. So we decided that all right, so sorry about that. So Ńkàtá Ụ, an initiative of the Center for Memory. So we wanted to have a platform where every month we could all gather as brethren to talk about issues that affect Alaigbo, issues that affect the Southeast region and how we can move our region forward. So the program started in 2018 and we had our inaugural lecture in May of 2018, and we had Professor Chidi Odinkalu who spoke on Igwe Kunye, lessons from post-war recovery in Southeast Nigeria. And then the next month we had Professor Oke Ndibe who spoke on Echidime, Ndibo, and the parable of the snail. And then we had other speakers, and then we've had Dike Chukwumerije as our speaker. In October of that year, we had Chika Odwa, who was our first female speaker, and she spoke on Nkiruka Azubike, the future is supreme, but there is strength in the past. And then in 2019, we had Chinenye Mbauzuku, who spoke on Onyekwe Chiyekwe, Igbos in a digital economy. We've had Ike Chioke, we've had Dr. Joe Abba, we've had Mr. Frank Nweke Jr. also as our speaker. We've had Professor Philip Effiong Jr., who spoke on Ipu Kanane, post-Biafra healing and reclaiming our shared ties. In December of 2019, we had the CEO of God is Good Motors, GIGM, Mr. Chidi Ajere, and he spoke on passing the baton for posterity. He spoke about succession in business. And then 2020, we could only have 3 sessions of Ńkàtá Ụ because of COVID. So in February of 2020, we had Mr. Kingsley Eze, and he spoke on Akurolo, building a startup nation. And then in March of that same year, we had Chief Ben Etiaba, and Ben spoke on Ijelu Obodozi, paradigm of servant leadership. And then there was that long break because of COVID. And then in December of 2020, Professor Osito Wu took the Ńkàtá stage to speak on Ọganiru bụ Ntụgharị, development as attitude. And then throughout 2021, we could also not hold Ńkàtá Ụ due to a lot of issues. And then we restarted this year. And in February of this year, 2022, we had award-winning author and lawyer, Professor Cheluchi Onyemelukwe, and she spoke on Ahame Fula, reaffirming the Igbo identity in challenging times. The next month, we had an award-winning artist and eco-environmentalist, Ife Chinua, and his topic was Nkanuzu, a journey into Igbo ingenuity through arts and architecture. The next month, the erudite Dr. Sam Amadi took the Ńkàtá stage to talk on Azọta Ala Azọwute, civic transformation and survival of Ndị Igbo in a chaotic world. And then the next month, in May, we had Professor Pat Utomi, the same Professor Pat Utomi, and he spoke on Akobu Mary, Paradox of Igbo Ascendancy. In June, we had Victoria Ibezim Oheri, and her topic was Igwebike, unlocking our productive potential. And then in July, Ńkàtá couldn't hold because of a lot of internal issues. Yeah. But then last month, August 2022, we had Mr. Obi Asika, who spoke on the topic, Tabubo, let's reimagine the possibilities and the opportunities in Alaigbo. And then today, we gathered together again as one to talk about, another very interesting topic, Gairu, reflections on progression. And our speaker is also another very powerful woman, and she's here already. And I don't think of myself as qualified to introduce our speaker. So I'm going to be inviting Mr. Ńkàtá Ụ, the convener of Ńkàtá Ụ, to come up to the stage and introduce our speaker for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nkiru. Let me start by appreciating my sister. Thank you very much, Ifoma. Ifoma. So let me start by appreciating my sister, Nkiru Arike, who is not only a member of the board of CFM, but one of the founders of CFM. Thank you for being here. And I just want to also especially thank those who have consistently supported us every month. I'm sure you all know that putting this together every month is really a huge exercise. It's almost like organizing the Olympics every month. And I mean it in every sense of the word. So we've had some very, very strong supporters who have been with us. Ihani mentioned a few of the names. Dev East, for the past 3 sessions, have been very, very useful partners to this event. We've had United Nigeria Airlines and Penguin, and then, very importantly, Afia TV. And I want to say a bit about that. I wasn't able to be at this event, and most of you know that I love being here every first Friday of the month. But you can imagine my joy and awe sitting down in my living room in Abuja and watching this program on Afia TV. And I can imagine other Igbos in different parts of the world doing the same. So please, can we give a special round of applause to Afia TV, who is doing this as their way of supporting this event. So we're here today. And Ifoma has given us a rundown of how we started and our journey so far. From Igwe Kunie in May 2018 to Tabubo in August 2022, we have tried to convene here as often as we can, just to make sure that we keep the conversation going. Just to make sure that the narratives that define us as a people and define our land constantly and consistently becomes the important conversations that drive us. The topics she has listed have been very, very useful topics that we have discussed here, and more importantly, they have shaped the conversations that we've had each time we leave this place on the social media, in the virtual space, those watching us online. We urge you, even as you hear today's message, you should also keep the conversation going, which now brings me to today's message and the messenger. So, like I said, please, let's keep this conversation going on, even when we leave here. And it's important for us to also note that I have talked about the TV live streaming that I saw, but I want to ask a special round of applause for Urban Radio, because they have been ensuring that we air this program live on radio, and I'm sure they're listening to us. Today's speaker, I paused. Earlier on, I recognized the presence of Nkiru. I also now want to recognize the presence of Professor Okonkwo, the father of one of the founders of CFM, Ndidi Okonkwo Muneli. We knew her as Ndidi Okonkwo. She's now Ndidi Muneli. Thank you so much, Prof, for all the support. You always show up each time you're around, and we appreciate that. Today's speaker I don't know whether she still is, a bus conductor. Have we ever had a bus conductor here before? She's power-packed. She doesn't know, whenever I think of her, I call her my sister Nenyen Subu, because she's an activist. She's fiery in what she believes in. And she has encouraged a lot of young people, and I don't want to just say a lot of female young people, because she has been an inspiration to a number of us, including me. I look at her every day with awe and wonder where she gets the energy from. When we tried to get her here, the first time I reached out to her, she was on her way out of the country, so we agreed to reschedule. The next time I tried to reach her, she said, "Why are you always coming to me when I'm out of the country?" Because she was also out of the country. So I said, "I'm going to track you when you are not." The third time, she was out of the country, but we then agreed that the third time is the charm, that she's going to come back and do this. Chioma is the executive director at TechHer NG, and she's also the convener of the State of Emergency GBV movement, Gender-Based Violence Movement, applying digital solutions to societal problems, whether it is chaperoning young first-time women politicians, co-creating solutions for sexual and gender-based violence, or curating sessions on digital freedoms and security. She currently serves on the board of Plan International Nigeria and, yes, Oxfam International. Please join me and welcome my own sister, Nwanne Nwanyi Nenyen Subu. Let her come and tell us about Gairu, Reflections on Progression, reflecting on her days as a bus conductor.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Okay. So we're going to be talking about Gairu, right? Reflections on progression. And what I hope that I'm able to do at the end of my time is to hopefully challenge you to see that regardless of where you are right now, there's something in front. Challenge you to see that whatever it is you're doing right now, there's something that can be done beyond that. There's something that can be done in furtherance of that. Before I begin, I'd like to recognize the founder, one of the founders of CFM. I'd also like to recognize the father of one of the founders of CFM. It's important to give honor to whom honor is due. So thank you very much, because without you starting that, you wouldn't be here. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, ma. So let's hear this bus conductor story. And I remember when we spoke and I said, yes, I would make this one. Immediately, the first thing that came to my mind was, I've never told this story publicly before, but I felt like it was such a privilege coming home to Enugu. I'm from Anambra, but Enugu is home as well, right? They're one and the same. I felt like it was such a privilege coming home that we should have a heart-to-heart. All right? So are we ready for that story? You sure? So my first degree, I got from Ebonyi State University. And if I started telling you why I ended up in Ebonyi State University, we'll probably take the whole evening. But I'll just say that at some point in my life, I wanted to be a doctor. And to study medicine in Nigeria, you have to pass maths, physics, chemistry, biology. My father, God bless him, was paying for lesson. And now I got lesson. Nothing. I would do the lesson, I would understand it while the tutor was there. And my tutor was an old man who was very patient. I would do the lessons, I would understand the maths. As soon as he leaves, if you ask me, let's say, what is, I don't even know how to ask math questions. But if you ask me anything, just instant confusion. So we said, let's write JAMB, let's see how this thing will be. And for JAMB, I wrote English, maths, physics, English, physics, chemistry, biology. And brethren, the day the results came out, I got 162. And the problem wasn't the 162. The problem was in English, I had 82. So physics, chemistry, biology was the other 80. And out of that, biology, I had 40. So my father, when they brought the results, when you just tell yourself, you have tried. That, I mean, those of us who are students, that feeling. So when they brought the results, I took it to my father. I gave it to him. He looked at it, he looked at me. We both looked at the paper. And then he said, you cannot read medicine. I said, I know. I know. And so we started wondering, what am I going to study? And somehow I ended up in Ebonyi State University to study mass communication. Don't even ask me how the JAMB of medicine took me to mass comm. Let's not do that one today. And so I started studying there, and I loved it. I loved arguing in class. I loved it. I loved the idea of communication. And I studied in a campus called Isheke. And if you know Ebonyi well, most of the cult crises would happen there. And then I lived in another part of town called Cass, which was where another campus was. And I stayed in a hostel called Simeon Odoye Hostel. I think Simeon Odoye was a military administrator in Ebonyi. And so one day there was some sort of crisis in school. Even when the cultists are not yet fighting, you can tell when there's tension. So my friend was like, an Edo girl, she was like, Madam, anywhere Bele face, the house will they go like that? So I'm like, yes, let's go. I was carrying my bag, I was wearing a skirt. I'm like, let's go. And so we went to the bus place where we take buses back, and there were no buses. And they were like, the people are coming. So I said, who is coming? They said they don't know, but they are coming. I said, no, my life has just begun. I was in second or third year. And then we saw a bus driver who lived close to our hostel. His wife used to sell, like provisions we used to buy. So we saw him, and I'm like, Diani, are you going? So I was looking at my skirt, and I like short clothes, right? So, and I was telling my friend, she was like, leave him, make it a go. We'll get another bus. I'm like, my darling, they said some people are coming. We need to be going. And so she said, no. And the next day we saw people running. So I started flagging down the bus. So he stopped. He was like, what is it? And I said, let me be your conductor. So he was like, what? I said, yes, I can do it. So he was looking at me. I guess he was also looking at my skirt. And he was like, I don't want problem. I said, no, I promise you, I can do it. So he said, that's okay, that I will give him the money. I'm like, of course. In my mind, I'm like, I'm just trying to get home. I don't want your money. So I sat on the edge of the bus, my short skirt and then we started shouting Cass. So he would shout, in his deep voice, Cass, and I'll shout, Cass! So people would turn just from the sound of my voice. So at a point I realized, this is a marketing strategy, right? Because when he's shouting, it's the normal, regular bus driver shouting. But when it's me, it's a girl. So people were turning and saying, Ununagakwa Cass. And I'm like, yes, come in. And we filled up the bus. And so we started heading down. Remember one of the first things I said, I don't know math. So, and being a bus conductor, you have to give people change. So we'll stop at a place, somebody would give me 200 naira. Nah, 200 naira was a lot of money then. Let's say like somebody give me 100 naira. To maybe calculate, let's say like 85 naira. I'll start putting out the money like this. It's okay. So he'll be shouting, Mekwasi, so I'm like, just calm down. I need to give them their correction. And my Igbo at the time wasn't great. So the man is shouting at me in Igbo, and I'm saying, you need to calm down. They don't have their complete change. And then, of course, as soon as you've given someone change, when it's time to go, what do you say? What do you say? Guess who started saying it that day? And so I did that and did that and did that. And by the time we went to like 2-3 stops, I needed to drink water. So I said, Oga, I need to drink water. He said, here. We just started. We have a lot of way to go before we get back. I said, no, I need to drink water. Then somebody passed with pure water. I said, it's not cold. I can't drink it. It was a mess. But somehow, we did this and did this and did this, and we got to CAS. And he was like, he wanted to drop us in front of our hostel to say thank you. Of course, by this time, everybody had calmed down. It was just 2 of my friends and I. And so I left the door of the bus open. You know, I'd been shutting it, who wants to die? But this time it was just us, so I left the bus open. And so when we got around my hostel, I stood up, my short skirt and I. And so my friend was like, pull down your skirt, pull down your skirt. And I was shouting, Gairu, Gairu, Gairu. And I tell that story because when I told my father that, by the way, my father and I are very close. He's very strong-willed. I'm very strong-willed as well. So when I told him I was a bus conductor, I think his first fear was this child has dropped out of school. And not only dropped out of school, the thing she has decided she wants to do with herself is bus conductor. And so he was like, where are you right now? I said, in my hostel. Why were you? What were you? How were you? Whose boss? Where? And so I told him the story. Eventually, the school got shut down for a little while because the cult clash eventually became a thing. And then after a while, we resumed. But till I left Ebonyi State, every time that driver saw me, he would shout, Kas! Or he would shout, Gairu. And I tell that story today because you can make beautiful things out of anything. And I think when I told my mother, my father was worried, but my mother reflected and she said, this is the thing about Igbo people. We will always find a way. And that's why I'm telling that story today, because I wanted to be a doctor. Yes, my sister is a doctor, a very successful doctor in Abuja. It didn't work. And so I decided to do the next best thing, the thing that I figured out that I could do. It took some reflecting, but I figured out that I enjoyed speaking. I enjoyed talking with people. I enjoyed having conversations. And I've done that since then. And so when you talk about reflections on progression, for me, and I had a conversation with a number of young people earlier today, and the conversation was around, spoke about 3 things. The first of them was people, and how people are a big part of progression, right? So if the bus conductor wasn't there, if he didn't know me from living around their area, if his wife didn't know me, and therefore I'd seen him a few times, he probably wouldn't have gone against himself to let a woman be his conductor. To the young people this afternoon, I also spoke about knowledge. And knowledge is not just book knowledge. It's not just the knowledge you get from university. It's not just the knowledge you get from books. It's also the things that happen in your life. And what are you taking from those things? Quite a number of things have happened in my life. Some of them good, some of them absolutely terrible. For the ladies here, you know that once a man breaks your heart, all the sense you did not have before, it just lands on you, right? And so a lot of things have happened in my life, some of them good, some of them bad. One of the things I believe I have been blessed to be able to do is to be able to find something from whatever it is that I can learn. So if we cooked rice today and it was sweet, How do we document it in such a way that the next time we cook rice, it's better? Or it's just as sweet? If we found the perfect formula, how do we document that? If we cook rice and it was rubbish, what did we do wrong? And how do we ensure that the next time we cook rice, it's not rubbish? And the third thing I spoke to the people today, the young people today, was about name. And I said that your name is the only currency you have absolute control of. It's not the naira that between Emefiele and Buhari, we're not sure, maybe they're just throwing it up like this, but they're using it to do tumbom tumbom. Your name is the only currency you have. When you hear a name like Obiasika, and I worked for Obiasika in 2015, when you hear a name like Sam Amadi, and I worked for Dr. Sam in 2012, when you hear names like that, you're quick to associate them with something. And so when you think about progression, one of the questions you need to ask yourself is, what is your name associated with? Something that I've become, very passionate about over the last 5, 6, 7 years is sexual and gender-based violence. And the reason why it's important is that beyond the physical damage it does to the body of the survivor, there are mental scars that will almost never go away. And I'm not here to tell anybody not to abuse anyone. I'm here to tell you to think about your name, to think about the name that you're creating for yourself, to think about the name that you will be known for. I gave an instance earlier today about a certain situation where I had 2 people who I've never met, who I'll probably never meet, vouch for me on social media because they said if Chioma is in this thing, then it has to be a good thing. And the other person said, maybe Chioma did not know that these people are bad people. And often it is the people who speak for you when you're not in the room that count. Because anybody can say anything to your face because they want to be friends with you. But when people speak for you, when you're not there, when they say, no, this is a good person, or even if she did this bad thing, there must be an explanation, this person is not like that. That's what progression means. And so I'll quickly just look at my notes because I'd written out a definition of progress that I like, which is development towards an improved or more advanced condition. Meaning that if you have 5 naira today, how do we have 7 naira tomorrow? Notice that I did not say from 5 naira to 1 million, because there's some devil in the air that is telling people that you go from 5 naira to 1 million. I said from 5 naira to 7 naira, then to 9 naira, then to 10. Sometimes you might even go back to 6, and then you start to build again. But progress is development towards an improved or a more advanced condition. And that development doesn't just happen in and of itself. It takes a number of things, and the first of them is hard work. Hard work is something that you cannot deny is needed. And I think that one of the things that has helped me throughout my short career, especially compared to the other people who have been listed, is that I work hard. There is a time to play, and there's a time to put down your head and do the bloody work. That is, put down your head, block out the noise, do the work. What have you identified as the work that you need to do? There are times when you need to block out the noise, turn off your phone, and do the work. When I speak to ladies, I say to them that if someone Googles your name and the only thing they find is your social media, there's a big problem. Big, big, big problem. I had a lecturer during my master's degree who used to ask us, how have you contributed to the body of knowledge today? And I ask you, how have you contributed to the global body of knowledge today? And global is local, local is global. So how have you contributed to the knowledge of your friend sitting beside you? How have you contributed to the body of knowledge in your university, in your place of work, and then online, offline, in church, in school, all of those things? How are you contributing to the body of knowledge? If you want to take away something from today, if the only thing somebody finds about you online is your social media, there's a problem. There's a big problem, because it means that this technology boom, you're not You're not playing with it. You're not taking it and doing stuff. The second thing on the path to progress is resilience. And resilience because a lot of times the way we decide we want to go is not the way we end up going, right? Things happen. Maybe you're in school and then a parent dies, and therefore the money that you used to get every month doesn't come anymore because one parent is no longer there. Or something happens, a lecturer decides to victimize you because you don't want to have sex with him. Someone decides to, give you trouble because they don't like you. Resilience means that you don't stop going. Resilience is being like a bull. No matter how much you try to run away from a bull, it keeps coming, it keeps charging, it keeps pushing. When our lands are decimated or desecrated, we rebuild. But how are we building individually? How are we rebuilding individually? ASU has been on strike now about 180 days. What have we done with our time? What skills have we built in that time? Where have we gone to volunteer? Where have we gone to do internship? What skill have you learned? How is your life better? Or are we going to keep saying, I was talking to a journalist outside, are we going to keep saying, oh, we have been disadvantaged? Read novels, that reflect on Igbo land. There's a lot of talk about communal living, communal resolution of issues, communal growth, communal this, communal that. And so I want to challenge you today. How are you using your community? How are you learning from your community? How are you asking questions? How are you advancing your communities? There's something that's said about a particular region of Nigeria, that if you let one person into a door, before you count up to 10, that person has brought in 200 people. Igbos, we don't really do that. We do it, but not as well as others, not as well as other regions. So how are we advancing our communities? If there's something going wrong in your community, as a man, as a woman, you have a voice. Raise your voice against that thing. Heroes and champions are not, they don't fall from the sky. They're people who find problems, who say we can't live with these problems, we want to do something, and so they do something. So how are we advancing our communities? How are we asking questions? How are we challenging the status quo? And that's a big one. How are we challenging the status quo? How many of us here, to use the conversation that's in the media, how many of us here are ready to vote? My team was here earlier this year and we spoke to a number of people and people said, I'm not voting. Why? Ikadirom. But the person who is in government house, the person who is your legislator, the person representing you in the local government determines if you're going to have water or not. Some of us have never seen water run out of a tap. It's only tanker. Yet, Ikadirogi. The people in charge of us, the people we have elected to lead us, they're not afraid of us because we don't have power, we don't have time. And so they're free to do whatever they want to do in the positions of office that we put them in. So when I look at my life and I think about progression, I see voices, I see anger at the status quo. I see discontent. I'm always discontent. I'm always thinking, how can we make this thing better? How can we achieve this faster? How can we pull a lot more people up? How can we make this more productive? And so my charge to you today, the first thing I said was, if the only thing someone finds about you online is your social media, there's a problem. The second thing I'm going to say is, develop the attitude of discontent. This can't be the Nigeria that we're comfortable in. I could start from statistics on health, statistics on sexual and gender-based violence, education, employment, everything. Nigeria is at the bottom of indices worldwide. This cannot be the country we're comfortable to live in. Can't be. But as long as we say we're fine with it, everybody who is in office will believe we're fine with it, and so they won't do anything. And so I urge you today to be discontent. to think about the definition of progress, which is development towards an improved or more advanced condition. And so let's ask ourselves every day, how do I move from where I was yesterday? How do I move from where I am today? And how do I go forward? How do I, like bus conductors in buses, how do I go forward? How am I able to tell myself, today I have taken one little step towards what I want to be. Today I have taken one little step towards what I want my community to be. Thank you.
What really inspired you to, keep your name as that currency you're in charge of?
I'm just going to say, my father is a bishop, yeah? So he tells us stories every day. And so most of the questions I will respond to with stories. But about name, when I was younger, my brother and I used to fight. And we fought every day. It was like there was a devil in the house that as soon as we come back from school, before you count up to 10, something has happened, we're fighting. And so my father and my mother at the time would call us, they would say, you are children of God, are you a Jesus baby, those types of things, it didn't work, fighting. Somebody would scratch this person, the other person would do this. So one day, my mother said, if I hear that you people fought again, I will beat you. And we're like, nah, Momsi does not beat us, kind of thing. So true to form, we got home after school, fight had started. So we were fighting when my mother drove in. And we're fighting so hard, we didn't hear her driving. So she drove in, and for children of the 80s, most parents had cane just somewhere in the house. So she entered, somebody's shirt was torn, blah, blah, blah. She said they should go and bring the cane. So I started crying. Of course, I don't like problem. Don't beat me. And I was already tired from the fight. So I'm like, which body will I use to collect this cane? So I started crying. I was crying, snot was coming out of my nose. And I was telling her, listen, I promise you, I will never fight him again. This and that and that. She now said, she quoted the Bible. She said that, that place in the Bible where God says, by my name have I sworn. She was like, she said it in Igbo. She was like, I'm a crash one more time. So we cried and cried. I was rolling on the floor. And she said, listen, I have made you a promise. I will keep my word. I will beat you. So my father came back. The theatrics were still going on. I was yelling. And so my father was like, whatever you're going to beat this child. She has cried it. And my mother said, no. I am a person of integrity. I promised her that I will beat her. I need to prove to her that when you say you will do something, you do it. Long story short, my mother beat me. And I don't even think I remember the beating. Maybe she flogged me once or twice. I don't know what it was. But what I remember was she was quoting the Bible to beat me. And somehow it stuck with me. That thing about two things. One about, I'm a person of integrity. I promised to do this thing, I will do it. But also when she quoted, by my name have I sworn. And so it wasn't, I tell this story because it wasn't anything grand. It's not like I had an epiphany or anything. But just throughout, as I started growing up, when I want to say that I'm going to do something, I would say, by my name have I sworn. And for people who are really close to me, they would laugh because it's like, Chioma has said this thing, she's going to do it. And that's pretty much been it. As far as translating that to the work that I do, I think very quickly we learned that if somebody says you've stolen 10 naira in Nigeria, then they'll say you stole 1 million. Then they'll say you stole 10 million. And once you start going down that slippery slope, you can't come back. The other thing is an Igbo saying that says, if you call somebody a thief in the marketplace, and then you find out that the person is not a thief, you can never bring back everyone to tell them that, no, it's a mistake, it wasn't Chioma, it was Chika. And so for me, I've always thought about how do I avoid that situation where I have to explain myself or start saying, no, it's not me, it's somebody that looks like me or somebody bearing my name. And that's just kind of guided me. So it's nothing fancy, it's just, yeah.
Thank you. My second question is about community. You said one of the things that really helps to uphold the idea of progress is community. Being an Igbo woman, how do you think the Southeast has missed out from the idea of community? Judging from the narrative, people outside have about us that, Igbos, we don't have the king and all of that. So what do you think we have missed out from the idea of community? And what are your recommendations?
I don't think that, in the Igbo is a problem. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. As a matter of fact, it's one of the things I'm very proud of, right? Because I don't have herd mentality. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it because I believe in it, not because somebody there has said, let us all go. And I think that, there are regions in Nigeria that once they say, let's go, without asking where are we going, how are we going there, what are we going there to do, people just rise up and begin to go. I think it's very foolish. So I don't think that Igbos not having one king is the problem. I think that, and if you look at our history, we've been more clannish than anything. So there's, like little pockets of communities that stand for different things, that do different things. So there's that. What I think we haven't done is advance the region as a whole. So you have people advancing those little clans. So for instance, you hear about one thing, oh, it's those people. You hear about that thing, it's those people. If you look at other parts of the country, especially within the civil service, it's not this state or that state or that state of a region. It's everybody. So I think that what we need to be thinking about in the East is kind of, language fails me, but let's say the coagulation, just bring it all together. So what is somebody in Nnewi doing? What is someone in, Isialangwa doing? How can we bring it all together and advance the entire region as opposed to having pockets of success in different parts? That's what I think we should be thinking about.
That makes sense. Thank you very much. Now, my last question before we give it back to the audience. I'd like to, earlier in the day, you said that failure is knowing what not to do. In your journey so far, what would you classify as the failure that, you can never go back to? I'd like you to share your experience, if you don't mind, so we can learn.
That's a big question. In 2015, I started an organization called TechHa, and I started it by mistake, right? But that's a whole other story. But then I hired a bunch of people to come work with me. I remember that one of the board members for CFM, Jude Ilo, who used to be at Osiwa, they gave TechHa our first grant. And I remember that I was so naive about working in civil society that when I went to tell him, okay, yes, we're ready to collect the money, he was like, where's your bank account? Where's the organization's bank account? And I said, oh, we don't have. So he was like, okay, you want me to count the money I give you in your hand? But I think one of my biggest failures has been TechHa failing, because at some point it failed. And I fired everybody because the organization was not tenable. Fired everybody, and I just, I left the country. And I spent some time away just reflecting on what could I have done better. And I'm going to be very honest and say that this organization failed. We sacked everybody. There was no money, nothing. As a matter of fact, at the time everybody left, one of the staff, a guy, had pushed a girl against a glass partition. She had fallen. Thankfully, the glass did not break. Another of the staff had threatened he was going to beat me. This is somebody whose salary was paid. So to give you an idea of the kind of chaos that was in the organization. So when I talk about failing, we failed, and we failed well. And by this time, people already knew me. So it wasn't like, no, it wasn't like I was 21 or 22. No, people knew who I was. And so I had to go and hide away for a little bit and just really reflect, what did we do wrong here? And I spoke to two people. One of them is my lawyer, and she now sits on the board of TechHa. And the second person is my best friend, who was a HR professional. And both of them said, you didn't do this well, you didn't do this well, you didn't do that well. Even the firing, they said to me that it wasn't proper. So the process to fire those people was not proper because we didn't have a policy that dictated that. And so it was a period that I remember now and I can smile about. But even when I smile, I remember how painful it was to admit to myself that this thing had failed. Now don't forget, my father's original dream for me was to be a doctor. I now said I wanted to do this communication thing. And he couldn't really understand, what does she do? She just carries computer up and down. And then sometimes she's on TV, sometimes she'll tell me she did this for BBC or for CNN, they gave her money, those types of things. But to give it a tag, so to then hear that the organization had packed up, he started asking, so do you want to go and study international relations? Or do you want to go and study human resources? But I'm grateful for the lessons that I learned then, painful as they were, because I came back to Nigeria later that year and I started hiring people again. I still have a lot of those people till today. And people have gone, some people came to do industrial attachment. They finished industrial attachment, they left. When they graduated, they started looking for me, I want to come back to work for you. And that tells me that we built a culture that people want to come back to. So even though we failed then, or even though I failed then, because I take responsibility for it, there have been opportunities to rebuild from that to the organization that people know today.
Please, let's give her a round of applause.
About Oganiru, I heard you talk about community.
Yes,
I think we should be looking at a binary of an interface of Iru and Okota. Okota meaning Azo,
yeah,
literally, but also meaning support. And that is where the issue of community comes in. I think we don't have Okota in the southeast. We don't have the necessary backup that would enable people to move forward. Some of the pockets of development you just mentioned, they are not doing much. You know, they are building that in Aba, building that in Nnewu. Where is the synergy to enable them go on? You know, so the governors are not doing enough to support, I mean, not just governors, politicians. Unfortunately, we have just bread and butter politicians. They are not doing enough to support social efforts at social development. So people just do their thing. You know, we talk about it and life goes on. That is where the problem of the Southeast comes from. The last time I came here, Asika was talking about creative economy, blah, blah, blah. I remembered I was in an event at Nike Lake in 2013, and Mike Ejiara came and performed. Then quickly they brought a check of 50,000 and gave to him. I called somebody aside, one of the commissioners. I said, how can you give Ejiara 50,000? They said the governor was not around, that he wanted to do more. Was the governor going to carry the money in a tip and come there? Is it not the way he wrote 50,000? He will write 5 million. How can you give Ejiara? You know, the support is not there. The other day it was a young girl, Amarachi Atama, that ran around and went to paint the place where Ejiara is. This is somebody who is a brand, not just for Enugu State, but for Igbo land. So he's going down. He doesn't have adequate shelter. And you have a government here, and they can't go there and repair the place. It was efforts of young people who appreciate his music. So we lack Okota. The only thing they know is how to fill their pockets people are doing certain things here and there, no support. So these are some of the things I think I wanted to hear how you analyze the philosophy of Iru, because Igbo na-aba afa nke dị n'iru ka. But ịma aga iru without looking back. Ịrapụ ọkụta ịpụ ifue n'ụzọ. So that's my take. I wish I had listened to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really very interesting and enlightening. But there was something you said which I liked, the analogy you looked. The young people now always think you have to blow immediately. Your analogy was you get 5 naira, tomorrow 7. You get 7, 9, and sometimes you go back to 5 or even go lower than where you started and start building. And that's that you go back. Doesn't mean you're not making progress. Sometimes you have to go back to be able to go forward again. You learn from your mistakes. I learned that strength is not that you don't fall, it's being able to rise after you have fallen. But what we see now is that not every, but the way the young people are being positioned is that you must blow. If you don't blow in the next 6 months or 1 year, you're doing something wrong. No. Some of the people will call overnight success. You check, they've been at it for 20, 30 years. But the day they finally succeed, overnight success. But it's them that will tell you how many years they have toiled before they get there. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that baby steps. Just keep doing the right thing, a day at a time, and that thing you're chasing, will eventually come to you.
My brother has already said one of the things I wanted to point out, but the remaining one is a take-home for myself and other people here. From the story she narrated today, you can see how her parents have groomed her. If it is today parenting, they would have forced her to go into that medicine. Some would go as far as buying the admission for her, and that would have destroyed her life. But today we saw a story where even the father admitted, my daughter, you want this, but you cannot do this. And they have to give her that chance to do that one which she wants, that one which makes her comfortable. Along the line in her story, she said that at a point her parents didn't understand her work. They only see her carrying a laptop around. But they know that she's making progress. They didn't want to interfere. They didn't want to say, okay, I can help you secure a job. They saw that she's moving. And they allowed her to move at her own pace. This is something I want us to take. Thank you all.
I will read law. But clearly that one too did not work. I won't tell that story. You should not know too much about me, but I just thought I should mention it.
I am Chioma Agwuegbo. Kabo Ńkàtá Ụ. Abịa m isi afọ m ka ede Ńkàtá Ụ. Ọ dịka onye ọbụla na-asụ oyibo, nwebụ onye mfu sụnyala ezigbo Igbo. Na-asị nke a ka bụkwa Ńkàtá Ụ ka anọzi na nkata oyibo n'onu ndị iti. It's a privilege to be here, actually. Mrs. Chioma, right?
Just Chioma. Chioma is fine.
Okay, no Mrs. Okay. Observing you, I can tell that you are blessed to come from a very good family. And that is something that most of us, we don't have.
Yes.
And I will keep hammering that without the family, the society is dysfunctional.
Yes, ma'am.
The family is a pillar of every human society. Without the family, every other thing we are doing is nothing. We are all a product of a family. Yes. Be it our governor, be it the president, everyone. So it all still narrows down to the family. We live in a society where you hear things like, if you don't get money, hide your face. And then our children were emulating. They are seeing, they are listening. And they do much more better, in seeing and then doing. Now my question is, I've met people, people are not happy.
Yes.
Especially the youth.
Yes.
They are not happy.
Yes.
Going to school is not enough. Most people are just walking around without a sense of purpose. Yes. Now my question is, if you find yourself in that situation, maybe you don't have a good mentor, you don't have a good parent, you have no one to fall back on, you're done with school, even with university and everything, but yet you don't know your left from your right. You're still living a miserable life because money doesn't really give that satisfaction. You can't just keep going on a job when you don't have a satisfaction. There's something called satisfaction on the job. So it's all aligns to passion, self-identification, and then it's now a calling. Like you're enjoying yourself. Like I see you dying doing this because it's a calling. It's not just a job to you. So as a young people, how do we get it right? Because it starts from there. How do we get it right? How do we get it right? I'm not going to say again.
People this afternoon. I talked about my first job, actually my first main job. I was a radio presenter at ASO Radio and Television Services in Abuja. First of all, they didn't like me. I talked too much, and I was quick to say, why is that person pronouncing that thing like that? Or, why is he calling her like that? He can't talk to her like that. Now, this was civil service. Apparently, there was all of that. I was NYC, I was the head of the broadcasting unit, so I brought that mentality to civil service. So they didn't like me. I was earning 36,000 naira a month. And I think this 36 was before taxes and all those things. So by the time they finished, maybe it was like 28 or 29,000. But it didn't matter because I lived with my aunt. And I said that this afternoon. I lived with my aunt. My parents were not living in Nigeria at the time. So I lived with my aunt. I was driving her car. I didn't have to buy fuel, all of those things. And I recognized that out of 5,000 people, I'm probably one of 5 people who had that type of upbringing. The good thing about life, however, is that they say that the rain that falls on the good person, that same rain falls on the bad person, falls on the rich person, falls on the poor person. First of all, that aunt is now dead. She died of cancer at 42. And her passing was one of the reasons why I said, you know what, I want to come back to Nigeria. And I say that to say that everybody will face something, right? Everybody will face something. One thing that's common in life is ebbs and flows. And sometimes it's easy to think this person has had a good straight life. But I've sold clothes. When I was getting a master's degree in the UK, I was a waitress. I was a chef. I was flipping burgers at stadiums because I needed to earn money. I was, the only thing I didn't do, I didn't bathe anybody. I did not do that kind of thing. But I worked, and I did painful work because I was trying to prove to my father that I can stand without you. When I started speaking, I said my father is a strong-willed person. I am too. And I think he had endured mass communication. And when it was time for me to do a master's degree, guess what I wanted to study? Social media. So when he was telling his friends, I'm sending my child to study for a master's, Joy, what is your child going to study? I say social media. Where see your child is going to study Facebook. The man came home. This is my problem with you. Why must you do something that other people are not doing? You did not see human resources, you did not see international law. And so for a while he said he wouldn't pay. And then he woke up one day and said he would pay. But it wasn't his choice subject for me. And so after a while I needed to make the point that, listen, I know exactly what it is that I'm doing. And I'm willing to do what I have to do to take care of myself here. And there's a certain respect my father has for me today that I know when the respect started, right? And so what I'll say is, life deals us hands that sometimes we cannot, you cannot say, you know what, you tell God or you tell your ancestors that I want to be born into Dangote's family. I want to be the first child so that when I grow, I'll be in charge of the companies. I also want to marry, they don't even marry Chanel. I want to marry Bill Gates. No, we have to go outside Nigeria. I want to marry Bill Gates. And I want to be his only wife. Okay, Zuzu, he will just love only me. And I will be in charge of Microsoft. And then when I give birth, I want my first daughter to be Serena Williams. And then I want my son to be Michael Phelps. We don't choose like that. You play the hand that you're dealt. And so what I would say is, you mentioned something in your question, which is self-identification. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to talk. So we then started thinking about what professions can allow me talk. I used to carry newspapers then when I was young and say, today on NTA News, my name is Chioma Agwuegbo, blah, blah, blah. So she said, why won't you read news? And that's where mass communication came from. And then I realized I actually like this thing. I won awards in Ebonyi, right? But it's because I had discovered, you know what, I like this. And like I said to the young people earlier today, several things have happened on my journey that have moved me from communication to advocacy, to movements, to protests in Nigeria, protests outside Nigeria, that have ultimately led me to saying that I want women to advance. How can I help women advance? The same way women have helped me advance. So I think it starts from self-awareness. What do you want? They say that, if you, there is this thing, my mother says that there is the thing that the white man did to Igbo land, and that thing is bad. But there's a thing Igbo land has done to itself, and that thing is worse. So if you find that you have been disadvantaged or victimized by everyone, are you going to victimize yourself? And I know that it sounds easy. Like if you're here today and you're even thinking, how am I going to get home after this? Me telling you, are you going to victimize yourself might sound like she's just talking. But think about it. Are we just going to sit down and say, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have that? When you think about the Bible, the lady that came and said, I don't have this, they're about to collect my sons. Adroya, okay, what do you have? And she said, oh, I have oil, small oil. My mother says that if she had said, I have groundnuts, Jesus would have done something with that. If she had said, I have beans, they would have done, what do you have? I don't believe people don't have anything. Not everybody will be a musician, not everyone will be a tech giant, but you have something. The person that cleans my house in Abuja, I can't even tell you how much she earns. The one thing that she has is honesty. That is, I can pour gold on the floor. She will quietly pick it up and put it inside a bag and say, all those things you poured, see them there. Maybe she'll be thinking this is a mad person. But she will pick up every single thing and keep for me. So when any of my friends say, oh, I need someone to do this, to do that, I'll say, oh, call my person and pay her. And they pay her. So sometimes if she makes, let's say 10 naira from me, she'll make 70 naira from my friends. She's not educated, but she has something. She was my late aunt's nanny for 17 years before my auntie died. So when I got a house, the first thing I said was, I want this person. She has something that I desperately need. So the question is, what do you have? What is the thing that you have today? Just as I said earlier, what is the thing that you have today that you can build on small tomorrow? Then you build on another small tomorrow. And then you build on another small tomorrow. That's really what it is.
This is the first. Actually, I've heard about this Ńkàtá Ụ the first time it started. But this is the first time. I came the other time, the first time it started, but I couldn't stay through the program, and this is the first time I'm staying. So I really appreciate our auntie Chioma. She really did a nice job. However, my own little contribution about the progress we are talking about today is sorry, can swear Igbo na incha bụ ndị Igbo biko. So ihe mmụọ chọrọ itinye bụ mgbe ọ na-ekwu about ọganiru kwukwe maka azụ nke ahụ mee m ndị very happy. Ihe o ji mee m ndị very happy because na mgbe anyị na-eme existential philosophy we talked more about time, history and all those things. You discover that nya, without nya you can't say today. Without echi, tata enwere isi as well. So you discover that tata bụ a kind of bridge that secures the past and also guarantees tomorrow.
Yeah.
So now, a situation tata anyị dịgo ka o si dị, kedu effort anyị na-eme for us to have a better future, like mgbe the speaker na-ekwu okwu ọ nọ na-akọwa how can we do it better. Now I discovered na our heritage, ihe ndị nna nna anyị ha mere ọfụma dịka ị na-agụ Things Fall Apart Chinua Achebe, enwere a lot of things. Ọ bụ na ị gụọ dị akwụkwọ as a literature student, enwere a lot of things ekwuchere ebe ahụ which ọ bụ later on in my philosophy ka m bido ghọtawa, like documentation, writing. You know, the Europeans, they believe not how be a weatherized civilization, but in CBD Anua superseded what they did. Okay, yeah. So coming to that documentation now, I believe now what we are missing, the mark we are missing is actually documentation. Initially, and let me emphasize so that we see why documentation is important. Initially, Obona nwa boy jeche boy before without going school or marry, yes na onye zụrụ afịa ga-calculate marụ ka ọganiru ka ọ nọgara azụ, and after everything it can be quoted na onye a na-emebu ihe a mgbe dị etu a dị etu a, but we no longer do it now. Ihe onye ọbụla chọrọ bụ ibute ike, ịghọtago. So that is where we are missing the mark. I think we should, as ndị Igbo, think of a way to document our success. Ọ bụ na onye ọcha mgbe ọ na-ekwukwu o kwuru about kedu ihe ọ ga-abụ itinye na nri ọkarụ mma, ịghọtago. But anyị wee onye na-eme nke ọ na-ekpuchi ọ chọghọ ka ndị ọzọ wee marụ, and that is here na ego onye ọbụla dịrị ya. We should know na ego onye ọbụla dịrị ya, ọ bụrụ ọbanye cover ka onye ọbụla marụ, onye ọbụla marụ n'otu a ka esi eme ya. The next generation will also follow. Esikwe etu a na-abịa, before you know it, we have been able to stockpile a knowledge process. Ọ ga-abụ ịpụta ha na ọsị yes n'otu a ibidogodo ebe a wee mewe ya. Ọ bụ na ndị Igbo ga-develop a way of documenting, well, documentation, I think ọ ga-help. Why? That's my own little contribution.
Thank you. I think something just very quick to say about that is, it's one of the reasons why I'm very excited with the Center for Memories. The first time I visited the center was 2018. And when I visited today, Ifoma was telling me about the exhibitions that have held since then and how they've been themed around a number of different things. All, around like Igbo history, Igbo culture. What I said about is Afia TV. And when I first heard about the concept of Afia, when the founder of Afia TV called me and said, this is what I'm thinking about, I loved it. Because I said, we have to tell the Igbo story differently. There's got to be a difference in coverage. There's got to be a difference in documentation. But there's got to be different voices from the voices that currently speak about Igbo people on the need for documentation, the documentation of our processes, the documentation of our struggle. If you ask 10 people in Nigeria today about the Biafran invasion, they will tell you 10 different things. Documentation. But I think that a lot of people realize that gap, and a lot of people are working on it. So thank you very much for sharing that.
My name is Lovett AK. I'm very happy that I didn't miss out on this particular Ńkàtá session. Chioma, it's interesting to know that even in your desire to maintain positive identity and keep being resilient and hardworking,
you still failed at some point along the line. So what really did you do to handle that terrible feeling that you have failed, knowing who you are and what you really stand for? Please share your thoughts. Thank you.
I cried. Man, I cried. I cried, and I cried a lot because I felt very ashamed, like I said. I couldn't even tell people. I think I told people like, Mr. Jude, Ilo, I must have told a number of, like 1 or 2 other people. But I cried a lot. And crying is good therapy, because by the time I cry, there's a place in the Bible where when David lost his son, the Bible says he cried and cried till he had no more power to weep. That was me. The type of cry that when you finish crying, you sleep. That's how I cried.
So after crying...
And then, when I woke up from that, I started asking myself, where did this thing start failing? Because a lot of times we see big failure. But it starts, the way you cut down a tree? It's not the first swipe that brings it down. But people just see, and it's not the last one either. It's little cuts, right? So I had to ask myself, where did I go wrong? Where did I not show leadership to my team? What did I do that made them believe they weren't supposed to deliver on their tasks, deliver on their roles, but also disrespect me? Where did we go wrong that people felt like they couldn't give us money to do the work that we wanted to do? So there was a lot of reflection involved and just questioning myself, but also being honest enough to go to other people, to ask them, look at what has happened though, what did I do wrong? And like I mentioned, there was my lawyer, there was my best friend, the HR professional, and they were able to point out to me, without mincing words, that here is a point of failure, here is a point of failure, here is a point of failure. And so when we started hiring people again, when I decided I wanted to go back, all of those points that they mentioned, we took care of all of them. We have policy documents for everybody. We have equal laws so that nobody feels like, oh, she likes me more than she likes the other person. There's a clear statement of work for everybody. People know exactly what it is they're doing. And so there's no confusion. There are new reporting mechanisms so that if we work for people, we're able to report on time. There's a lot of things that were identified as failures. That when we decided we were going to start again, one of the first things we did was put them in place. There's also government compliance, because you cannot be protesting against the government and you're not paying taxes as an organization. Yes, as NGOs, you don't have to pay taxes, but you still have to declare. And if you don't do that declaration, you're in breach. So it was just setting up all of those safeguards. But it was also investing in my people, investing in them in such a way that, like I mentioned, somebody works with us, they go, then they call and say, listen, can you sort out my NYSC? Can you request for me so I come work with you again, because I really enjoyed working with you? It's having an office space now that even though my team come to work like 2-3 times a week, sometimes you see them come every day. Why? Because they like each other and they like the place that they work. And coming from a state where people were pushing each other against glass to an office now where people come to work even when they're not supposed to come because they like each other, I think we've managed to turn things around.
Very short question. So, in running TechHa NG, I read about and saw that you're doing trainings for adolescent girls. And I wanted to ask, for someone who's interested in doing, or maybe your decision-making process when you got to the point of deciding to run this program for adolescents, what made you go for people at that stage? I mean, thinking about whether to do this for, say, university undergraduates or people who have already graduated, who may be at a stage in life where they may master those skills that you want to teach them at a shorter point in time? Or why did you go for people at that stage? Thank you.
Because Nigeria doesn't have laws that protect children. And I used to say to myself that, God forbid that we gather children in a place and then we have somebody come to teach them and the person abuses one of them. Onga, because I will kill the person, right? You can't abuse a child in my care. And so for the longest time, we didn't do anything with children. The second major point is TechHa primarily focuses on women because thanks to patriarchy, child rearing is left for women. It's almost like they're so preserved, right? And so we say to ourselves that if we secure women in technology today, we are securing the generation after them, because they will pass it on the same way they pass culture, religion, and societal norms. That's number 2. We then decided to do a school tour, because one time we reviewed our strategy and we received some data on schools in Abuja. And I'm not talking about schools in the center of Abuja. I'm talking about schools that when my team goes there, it costs us about 15,000 a day. That's how far it is from the city center. So we're talking about schools where, and if you look at some of our pictures, these children are sitting on the floor because there are no chairs. The schools are not connected to the electricity grid. We go to the schools and the teachers themselves have not eaten, not to talk of the children. And then we thought, this is the type of challenge we want. Let's go there. And so we started in 2019 and we reached about 7 schools and 400 and something children. And of course, COVID came and passed. And after COVID, some of the schools did not reopen because of kidnapping. So the Universal Basic Education Board that ratifies our work reviewed what we had done and then gave us another 14 schools. And we've now done those 14 schools between last year and July this year. And we're going to start another round in September. I'd mentioned earlier today that we signed an MOU to work with the University of Nasarawa, but ASU. Yeah? So that's in a nutshell, that's our strategy.
Okay. Thank you so much. So just to wrap up, I'd like you, I think Chinaza shared the concept of a youth who does not know how to start, and I mean the direction was starting with what you have. What about someone like you who has like an intersection of various expressions? So there's the movement side of you, there's the protest side, there's also the activism. How do you, what's your advice to that person who feels, I have so many things I can do, but I feel doing too much may not be enough? So I would love you to touch on that before we wrap.
What is in the center of that thing? So everything I do today, you will find women inside. Everything. There will be women, there will be girls inside. So is it women and digital literacy, or is it women and sexual and gender-based violence? A lot of solutions we work around for women will involve some sort of digital, right? So find the thing in the middle and then layer around it. I think my hardest work has been around women. Like when you say what is the work Chioma has done that she's really, really given herself to, it's been around women. So I'll just say find what is the thing that doesn't let you sleep. Sometimes I go to bed and I think about the very first child I saw that had been raped. It was a little girl of 3. What is that thing that doesn't let you sleep? And then just start to build layers around it. Whether it is your skill, whether it is your community, whether it's the people that you know. Find that one thing and then just build around it. It'll help you stay focused.
Thank you. Please, a round of applause for her.
The vice chairman of Enugu Sports Club. So Enugu Sports Club has been one of our major partners in this program right from the very start. When we started this program in 2018 till now, Enugu Sports Club has been, solidly behind the center and very supportive of Ńkàtá Ụ. So I'm going to be inviting Comrade Chief Tony Ude to please come up to the stage and give the vote of thanks, and then we can wrap up for the night.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me recognize Professor Okonkwo, who incidentally is one of our patrons of the Enugu Sports Club. Chioma Agwuegbo, the lead speaker. I'm sure she is of the great Edi Agwuegbo family, a renowned media man. You are welcome to Enugu Sports Club. And to you, our guests, you are welcome. From what I was able to glean from the speaker's interaction with you, I came in when one lady was trying to express the frustrations the youth are going through in this country. I want to appeal to all of us. We will get there with God's own backing and the right decision in the few months coming. If you do the right thing, your frustration will turn into a blessing or blessings, as the case may be. Let me use myself as an example. I came from a family background that was very poor. What do you mean poor? Very poor. But ironically, I lost my mom at the age of 2. That was what my father told me. I didn't know my mother whether she was black or yellow. But I survived. And I want to announce to this August gathering in September that through dint of hard work, I was able to break the poverty yoke. Went into school, came out, started my civil service job as the son of nobody. After 3 years, through the help of God and my sister, I was able to secure admission at ASUTEC then. And government gave me what they used to call study leave with pay. I soldiered on graduation, I went for my youth service. After that, I came back to the service. My mind was telling me, you are not meant to be in this country. You must leave for US. I had so many admissions, but my sister said, no, your future lies in this country. I went into my room one day, I cried my eyes out. Nobody came to my rescue. I said, okay, if that's how God wants me to become someone in life, so be it. To cut the whole matter short, through dint of hard work, I rose to the highest pinnacle of the civil service. And I retired as a permanent secretary in the Enugu Sports Service without being from the son of a nobody to somebody who is somebody. You can make it. So don't get despaired at all whatsoever. Well, I am standing here on behalf of the Enugu Sports Club chairman, Barrister J.H.C. Nwosu, who incidentally was busy somewhere and asked me to come and stand in for him to do the vote of thanks. When the journey began under Bennett Teba as our then club chairman, then Ńkàtá Ụ evolved with his own leadership. And ever since then, 4 or 5 years back, we have continually accepted the series of lectures being churned out by our people from the Center for Memories. It's not easy for them. And I want to tell you this evening that if this were to be a political rally, that the governor is to be here, this house will be filled to the brim. We don't believe in gaining knowledge. Come and take home something from what you're going to learn from here. No, not for me. How much would they pay me? No knowledge is a waste. We were told in those days that learning is continuous until death calls. The future is in our hands. So on this note, I want to thank the people at the Center for Memories and our guest speaker today, Chioma Agwuegbo, for having been here to interact with our youth and some of us, the elders, and to wish that there are so many other Chioma Agwuegbos here among our ladies, and so many Eddie Agwuegbos among our folks here. So an applause for all of us. Let's clap for ourselves. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Through the dint of hard work, you can reach your zenith without any prompting. Just be studious, hardworking, truthful, honest. The sky will be your place. On this note, I want to welcome all of you to Enugu Sports Club and to thank the Center for Memories for the wonderful work you have been doing to document our history. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Comrade Ude. So, we've come to the end of September edition of our monthly Ńkàtá Ụ. Remember that Ńkàtá Ụ returns in October, and we look forward to seeing all of us. So now we're going to all come to the front of the stage to take our group photograph with the speaker, and then we can all go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.